Chris Perez with D-Link Networks. Nice to meet you all. Thank you all for joining. We appreciate you guys coming on. We're very excited to show our upcoming solutions in our networking switching portfolio and Wi-Fi solutions. Quick, Chris, little view of our agenda here. I'm going to talk a little bit about who D-Link is. So multi-gigabit overview, that will be handled by our senior product manager, JP McFarland, as well as the multi-gigabit benefits, the applications. Then we're going to have a few live demonstrations of some of our enterprise software management platforms for our network management. That's going to be done by our systems engineer, David Casada, in our headquarters in Irvine, California. So then we'll go through some Q&A and we'll go about giving out that giveaway. Who D-Link is, we're a networking manufacturing company, very good in our revenue, and we're in 56 different countries. And we're going to be talking some about particularly some of the business segments that we're very strong in. So we're all of us, I think you've all seen a D-Link router, camera of some sort, USB dongle. We're very known in our home solutions, but for North America, most of the majority of our revenue actually comes from our business class products. So industrial hardened grade switches, layer 2, layer 3 switching, top of rack switching, Wi-Fi, cloud Wi-Fi on-prem. These are some of the solutions that we're very strong in, and we really would like you to take a look at our product portfolio and where it might fit in your business model. Very good in the service provider, but as far as the product diversity, we don't do everything under the sun. We really focus on the areas that in our strength areas, and that's particularly switching, Wi-Fi. We have 3 different versions of our management platform. So we have a cloud management platform, we have an on-prem software solution platform, and then we have our SNMP DVU8 software, a standard and enterprise version. So we'll talk about this more later on. We'll have a live demonstration on how you can manage your networks and where that fits in your vertical. We have camera, IoT, M2M, and we do have very good end-to-end networking solutions. So in areas of Nucleus Cloud, Nucleus Connect, DVU8. So Nucleus Cloud, if you have multi-site networks that you want managed in their Nucleus Cloud, you're able to do that. Nucleus Connect, if you're managing 1,000 to 2,000 APs and some switches, Nucleus Connect is a very good software that installs on a server, and you can manage your on-prem networks that way. And in DVU8, the SNMP software. So again, the end-to-end solutions, there's different areas why you would want to use these different types of platforms. So Nucleus Cloud, again, multi-site, you're doing cloud, you have multiple networks that you're managing on different sites. You want to view some statistic analytics, you want to see what your Wi-Fi is doing, any bottlenecks, perfect for that. If you're a person that's managing bulk networks in different facilities, maybe Nucleus Connect is something that you want to take a look at, where you actually install on the server and you manage 1,000+ devices on that software. You can definitely do that. And in DVU8, which is our more advanced enterprise SNMP software. So just to encompass what we're going to talk about, what we can do, right? So, and how it may potentially work in your business model. So again, Nucleus Cloud, we're very strong in that. Nucleus Connect, we're very big in small business. MDU networks, that's an area that we're very strong in. We do have a lot of product solutions that fit very well in that arena. Media panel solutions, layer 2, layer 3 switching, fiber core switching, various switching technologies that can help in that vertical, carrier metro Ethernet, and of course, enterprise and SMB campus. So now we'll get into it with our senior product manager, JP McFarland. He's going to go over the multi-gigabit overview.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, as Chris mentioned, my name is JP McFarland. I'm a senior product manager here at D-Link. I manage switches, wireless networking hardware, firewalls. I kind of do it all. So wanted to say hello. Everybody put a face to that name, and let's move ahead. So really, the reason why we're here today is to talk about multi-gigabit Ethernet. Multi-gigabit Ethernet has been around for years. Even D-Link has had multi-gigabit Ethernet products several years ago, but I think, the reason why we're talking about it today is that I think we've hit a bit of an inflection point. We've hit a bit of a point where, devices and the types of applications users are deploying on their networks, require some of these faster speeds. We've all seen, and I'll talk about it, we've all seen some of these crazy fast wireless access points, Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 6E, that kind of demand, some of those speeds. And, although that wireless bandwidth is shared, there's absolutely a reason why we want to deploy multi-gigabit Ethernet. So it was designed to offer higher network speeds. Multi-gigabit was developed to address growing bandwidth requirements. And essentially it offers a lower cost alternative to 10G base T. Really, really important to note is that I do not have to necessarily upgrade my cabling infrastructure. If I've got Cat5e running all throughout my building within my my MDU or within my office space, and I'm looking at some of these new 10 gig switches coming down the pipe, and I go, oh man, I've got to upgrade to Cat6a. That's going to be expensive. So what multi-gigabit switches allow you to do is it allows you to take advantage of those faster speeds off your existing infrastructure, which is super, super important, especially if we don't have the budget necessarily to upgrade to 10 gigabit. Or especially with the switches and and the cost of upgrading. So really, essentially, what multi-gigabit does, it's pretty simple. It increases the bandwidth on your network. It's designed to allow you to achieve, faster throughput to those Wi-Fi access points, which I just mentioned, or other devices that are demanding some of that additional bandwidth. Not only that, it's also backwards compatible. So multi-gigabit switches are completely compatible with your 100 megabit if you're still running it, or 1 gigabit services that you're currently offering. As I mentioned, it operates off of your standard Cat5e cabling. You can get to, if any of you saw that table a second ago, you can certainly go to 5 gigabit if you have Cat6 running on your network as well. But essentially it allows you to take advantage of your existing infrastructure. And because of that, it offers lots of cost savings. So I don't necessarily have to overhaul or rip and replace my entire network. What I'm able to do is I'm able to drop in essentially a multi-gigabit switch, copy over potentially a configuration, and away I go. So I can basically replace my 1 gigabit infrastructure with all the way up to potentially up to 5 gigabit infrastructure without necessarily having to do anything super, super special on the network, which is really where the power of multi-gigabit kind of comes in. So, some of the other things, I think I kind of talked about this a little bit. So, how D-Link feels and how we feel, what's driving some of that adoption and why we're talking about this today. As I mentioned, D-Link has had multi-gigabit switches for a number of years. But, there hasn't been a really, really great reason to upgrade to multi-gigabit unless you wanted to be on that absolute edge of technology. So what we're seeing obviously is there's massive demand for Wi-Fi 6 access points. According to IDC, the Wi-Fi 6 currently commands 80% of the market. Wi-Fi 6E is also gaining rapidly market share. And then in addition to that as well, as we all know, there's also Wi-Fi 7 access points that will be available down the line. So what that means is that, one, I've got some access devices that are requiring potentially more bandwidth. I want to offer higher bandwidth to my end user or to my clients. I've got access points that are able to take advantage of that and be able to push that out to my end users, but I don't necessarily have that infrastructure to be able to do that. So definitely Wi-Fi is absolutely a reason why. In addition to that as well, when we think about things like multi-dwelling units, users that are living within these buildings are connecting lots of different things into the network. So, as a service provider, maybe I want to offer things like triple play activities, IPTV, VoIP, and data connectivity. I want to offer Wi-Fi to common areas. I want to use I want to be able to deploy many rich services to clients that may also require, lots of extra bandwidth. So multi-gigabit within MDUs is very, very, I think it's a very good there's a very good opportunity for multi-gigabit deployments within multi-dwelling units. Obviously, as I keep hammering here, Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 6E, and Wi-Fi 7 deployments, the access points are just getting faster. So, we certainly want to try to take advantage of that. End user devices are getting faster, applications are getting more rich and more data hungry. So, they need additional bandwidth to be able to provide that. Some of the verticals that we're obviously targeting with multi-gigabit is, the hospitality, obviously offering, it's kind of very similar to MDUs, but offering high-speed internet and a superior guest experience, specifically for hotels. Obviously if you're a business, I'm sure we're thinking about multi-gigabit to the desktop to offer, faster data transfers, even on a traditional wired connection, which I know most businesses are installing wireless, but we certainly want to think about that, and we certainly want to be able to think about where and how much bandwidth is being consumed, and to be able to provide that directly to the desktop certainly increases the options for different applications running on the network as well. We're also targeting things like healthcare and educational institutions, educational especially, again, offering campuses, obviously increased bandwidth within labs, and dense device connectivity as well. So being able to deploy those access points and be able to really take advantage of the Wi-Fi performance to be able to offer out, seamless experience for your students. So specifically focusing on MDUs. So I think I kind of talked about this a little bit, but where we see some of the driving is definitely into multi-dwelling units. So what's kind of driving that? So there's lots. Everybody's got tons of devices. We've got in some cases multiple phones. I've got a laptop for work. I've got a laptop for. I've got smart TVs. I've got all sorts of different IoT devices. Now, certainly not every one of them, is going to benefit from multi-gigabit, but being able to provide multi-gigabit, certainly adds some benefit to those users. Lots of users today are also expecting, higher internet speeds, at least up to a gigabit and beyond. So it's vital to those residents' utilities, being able to communicate, be able to provide all the services to your clients. Absolutely makes multi-gigabit an advantage. With that as well, deploying multi-gigabit directly into the unit as well also provides kind of a seamless experience, not only for the service provider, but for the end user. So I can connect my computer systems into that. I can deploy as a service provider. Again, I keep hammering Wi-Fi 7 or Wi-Fi 6 access points, Wi-Fi 6E, directly within those units, and not have to run anything special or separate. And then in addition to that as well, I could run other things like security systems, or any other device that's taking advantage of these higher bandwidth requirements. And much like education, shared facilities is obviously a big question as well. So being able to deploy multi-gigabit and allowing you to densely provide data access to all your clients is very important. So just quickly talking about some of those applications. So MDU, absolutely an application, but there's certainly other applications that D-Link currently sees, multi-gigabit providing benefits. So in this case here, what I've put together is just an SMB, little SMB application. What we're doing here is we are driving multi-gigabit to the desktop. We're providing access to your PoE or PoE connectivity to your and connectivity to IP cameras, to VoIP phones, which certainly don't provide or require multi-gigabit at this point, but it does make the transition certainly seamless. We're also providing desktop or multi-gigabit access directly to the desktop, and also for that Wi-Fi access as well. So in this particular case here, we've got a number of switches, which I'll talk about in a moment, that allow you to provide that connectivity for SMBs. For enterprise, much the same. So D-Link is also launching, or we have launched, a new switch series that allows you to provide, if you're deploying for an enterprise, very, very rich feature set and multi-gigabit connectivity directly to that access layer. We have this DMS 3130 switch, which I'll talk about in a moment, that provides many different connectivity options, all the way up to 25 gigabit Ethernet, or sorry, excuse me, 25 gig SFP28s. Be able to provide very, very strong or very, very quick uplink capabilities, while also providing that enhanced network speeds for things like Wi-Fi access points, rich applications, cloud applications that be running on the network. In addition to that as well, the DMS 3130 also offers some, or multi-gigabit managed switches also offer a rich feature set that even telcos or ISPs can take advantage of as well. There's a number of features within these particular switches that allow you to provide, again, multi-gigabit access directly to that home or that business, while also providing or including some of those features that telcos can take advantage of within their network as well. As Chris mentioned in the beginning here, MDU is a big target. As Chris mentioned, that we are able to deploy these switches directly within the dwelling. So, not only including some of that multi-gigabit speeds, but also making sure that the device is fanless or it's protected from surges, to ensure that you can provide things like IP camera access, Wi-Fi access, and desktop connectivity directly within that the media panel within that unit. Here is a use case for apartment administration. So what we have is on each one of the floors, we've got stacks of multi-gigabit switches providing data access not only towards the into the dwellings, but it's also providing access for things like IP surveillance applications or Wi-Fi applications, and then running that back into via fiber, via 10 gig fiber directly into the core. D-Link offers a full line of switches that will not only address your edge access, but we also offer a full line of switches that also serve as an aggregation layer and your core layer as well. So again, as Chris mentioned, end-to-end solution. So we have everything, directly from where the internet comes in to where you're servicing that to your clients. So let's talk about the switches. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, and I didn't really talk about this at all because we were talking about, we were specifically talking about business applications, but I would be remiss if I didn't talk about some of our more SMB focused or small home business focused switches. So the first switch I want to talk about is the DMS 107. This is currently available today. As Ken mentioned, the DMS 108 is backed by a limited lifetime warranty, but all of our switches are backed by at least a limited lifetime warranty. So much like that, DMS 107 offers 5 1 gigabit ports, but it offers 2 multi-gigabit ports as well. And this is essentially for your small home office that's potentially deploying, maybe has a router or something along those lines with a multi-gigabit uplink port, or I've got devices like a NAS or some other device that may be a little bit more data hungry. So this allows you to kind of dip your toe into that multi-gigabit Ethernet for those couple of devices that you have. We also have a DMS 106 XT. This is definitely a consumer-based product. This is a gaming switch, so it offers 5 2.5 gig ports. It also offers a 10 gigabit uplink port as well, allowing you to definitely take advantage of some of those multi-gigabit speeds on your network and be able to uplink directly either into a NAS or via 10 gig or into the rest of your network via 10 gig. What's neat about this particular product is that it also has a turbo mode switch on it, which will automatically prioritize the devices on your home network with necessarily having to mess with any sort of configuration. Again, all of these switches that I'm currently talking about are unmanaged. And then we have the DMS 105 and 108. So these, for any of you that are familiar, we have a DGS 105, 108. These are the multi-gigabit brothers and sisters of those products. So these are 5 and 8 port multi-gigabit switches supporting up to 2.5 gig a second on your network. And much like the DGS 105 and 108, they're also backed by a limited lifetime warranty and are unmanaged. So they're plug and play. So anywhere that I may need to provide multi-gigabit access for, again, desktop systems, POS terminals, desktop systems, NAS, anything that may require some additional data throughput, these devices are great. Obviously, they're fanless, and they're very, very cost effective. These particular devices are available now. So a little bit more for the SMB. So we have the DMS 1250 series. So we currently looking at 3 models here. So the first 2 I'm going to talk about are the DMS 1250-10SP and the 12TP. So these are layer 2 plus managed switches, or smart managed switches. Essentially what I mean by that is these out of the box, these devices have a interface to allow you to manage the device. They offer full VLAN support. They offer light layer 3 static routing support, and a full suite of network features for an end user to be able to take advantage and deploy across their network. In addition to that as well, these particular devices also introduce a perpetual and fast PoE. What they allow you to do is they allow you to reboot the switch or power up the switch and power up your PoE devices very rapidly. Or if, for sake of argument, I need to reboot the switch for whatever reason, what that allows me to do is that will allow me to keep my PoE devices powered while I'm rebooting my switch. So I don't interrupt any of the power to that particular PoE device. In addition to that as well, the DMS 1250 series also comes with 6 kilovolt surge protection, allowing protection on those ports in case of lightning strike or something like that. That may hit a PoE device connected into the switch. There's 2 variations of this switch. We have an 8 port with 2 SFP plus ports for 10 gig, and a 12 port with 2.5 gig PoE ports, 2 SFP ports, and 2 10G uplink ports. So a couple of different port options depending on the application. I also want to mention both of these switches come with a 240 watt PoE budget. So a full complement of 30 watts per port across all 8 ports. So the third switch, which I want to talk about, is that MDU switch. So it's the DMS 1250-10SPL. This particular device will be available in Q1 of next year. It's designed for media panels. So why I say that and what I mean is that it's not only does it offer the same layer 2 plus features that we're offering with the DMS 1250, but it is fully managed or is a managed switch. It's got a compact form factor, so it's designed to be installed in smaller or tighter locations. 2, we do offer 8 to 2.5 gig ports and 2 SFP plus ports for uplink. But this particular device out of the box is fanless. It also offers upgraded 2 ports on it are upgraded to 802.3 BT support, so up to 60 watts per port to allow you to power a little bit more power hungry Wi-Fi 6E type devices. But because it is fanless, we've had to limit the PoE budget to 120 watts of power. So, depending on the application, you may need 1 or 2 access points plugged into this particular device within a media panel. So we do I would say a good PoE budget for that particular application. As I mentioned, this device as well is also offering 6 kilovolt surge protection. And what differentiates this from the other DMS 1250 series is that the power supply is external and it plugs into the unit directly on the front, so on the front panel jack. So it allows you to mount the power and the Ethernet cables within the same direction as well. In addition to that as well, the DMS 1250-10SPL does come with rack mount ears and offers keyhole slots to allow you to mount on a wall. So lastly, I want to talk about the DMS 3130 series. So we're currently, this particular family of switches are currently available. We offer them in 2 different variants. So we have a PoE version and a non-PoE version. So if you're just deploying data only, we have a multi-gigabit version of that. This is a fully managed switch offering a full web GUI and CLI. This is the switch that is primarily designed to operate within your enterprise or your Metro Ethernet applications. So for those of you that may be familiar with the DGS 3130 series, it offers a very similar software suite to the DGS 3130 series. It's 1 gigabit cousin, if you will. As I mentioned, it offers a full suite of management features. It's a full layer 3 switch, so it can certainly be deployed in the core if necessary for smaller networks or directly on the edge as well. So it's quite versatile. This particular switch offers stacking, full hardware stacking up to 200 gigabits with its 425 gig SFP28 ports, and will stack up to 9 devices. In addition to that as well, the PoE version of the DMS 3130 not only offers 2.5 gig Ethernet, but it also offers a bank of ports that support up to 5 gigabit Ethernet and 802.3 BT. So again, allowing you to power either more data hungry or more power hungry devices on your network. Each one of these ports, like I said, are much like all the other switches that we talked about, are also support 6 kilovolt surge protection on the ports as well for lightning or surge. As I mentioned, in terms of the PoE support, the DMS 3130-30PS, the 24-port PoE variant, offers 16 2.5 gig ports at PoE plus, so that's up to 30 watts, and then it also offers up to 8 5 gig ports up to 60 watts of PoE. Out of the box, this particular switch offers up to 740 watts, or with a dual power supply, an optional dual power supply, you can get up to 960 watts PoE budget off the device. So enough to power, quite a number of devices at full PoE.
Hello, I'm David Casada. I'm one of the sales engineers here at D-Link. I'm going to be going over DVU8, DVU8 software. So this is D-Link's network management and monitoring software. As JP was talking about, there's, you have a lot of variety of switches. You have your core, you have your access, you have your distribution. So what DVU8 is there to is help provide a single pane of glass where you're able to get data management, alerts, reports in a single pane of glass, where you're able to then, if there's any network issues where you need to troubleshoot, or if you just need to help optimize your network, you're able to do that. So I'm going to go over a couple slides of just the differences and the features that it offers, and then I'll do a quick overview of DVU8 and the UI, so you have an idea of what it offers. So I'm going to turn off my camera so we can get a little bit more screen real estate, as JP mentioned. So these are the features of DVU8 that it offers. You have real-time network analytics. So when you log into it, it's going to give you device statistics of your wired devices, even wireless devices, CPU utilization, memory utilization, throughput of all your devices. So real good real-time analytics of all your managed devices, so you're able to get an understanding. Maybe there's a temperature rising, or maybe there's too much network traffic on a particular uplink. You're able to see that in real time and make adjustments to your network accordingly. There's some other features here that it offers: batch configurations. You need to make some network changes, disable some features. You're able to do that. And then one last thing here on the feature slide I'll highlight is automated firmware, right? So you have devices all over the place, and you need to make instead of logging into each device and doing changes into their firmware, it'd be nice to have a single point of glass. And so that's what DVU can offer. Even if you have devices that are different locations, you're able to automatically update firmware from DVU8. Now, in terms of the versions of DVU8, there's 2 different versions of DVU8. So there's the DV-800S, which is our standard version. This is more for single site organizations. In comparison, we have DV-800E, which is the enterprise version. And this is mainly geared to more multi-site applications. In addition to multi-site, it also has other feature enhancements, such as an S-Flow analyzer. You can have it compile and have it be a mid-browser, REST API support. And it also has high availability as well, so you can have 2 servers for disaster recovery and prevention of loss of 1 server. So these are, if you want to trial any of the DVU8, you can go to dvu.dlink.com, and you can download a 90-day trial of the enterprise version. There's also an emulator on the website, so if you don't want to download the software, you can go through the emulator and just click around the different features that it offers. Now, in terms of the topology of DV8, this slide here is just going to show you, this is using the Enterprise Edition of how you would deploy DV8. So up on top there, you have your HQ site where you have your DV8 server running in high availability. It's managing the devices at that site, at that HQ site, your access points and your clients. And then to illustrate, you have DV8 probes at each of the other respected sites. So you have a DV8 probe at the New York site, and you have a DV8 probe at the London site. So those devices at each of those sites would not talk back to the HQ server, but they would talk to their local probe. And so that helps optimize the network. You're not having a lot of SNMP commands being sent back to your HQ and using up network traffic, but it's sending it to its local probe. The local probe then will consolidate the data that's gathered from those devices and then send that at a increment to the DV8 server to help optimize the network. So now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and show a demo of DV8, real brief. And this is just a quick overview of DV8. Of course, if you want to have a more in-depth, we certainly can offer that. You can reach out to us after the webinar or contact your sales account manager, and we can go more in-depth regarding DV8. So when you first log into DV8, this is our server we have here in our lab, one of our servers. And as you can see here, it gives you an overview. This overview is basically going to give you your device status if they're offline, online. So this is all real time, as I mentioned. Currently, right now, it's about 10:30. So I can see right now we have about 12 devices online and 3 devices offline. So that's about 80%. And what's nice is you can see there was a dip here about 10 o'clock, and then we had another dip at 9:46. So if you're managing hundreds of devices, you'll be able to see when there was a network outage. Perhaps maybe it was scheduled or unscheduled. Maybe it's a device that is having issues and it's just periodically going off. So you're able to then go and view those alerts and make changes as needed to address any of those type of issues. It also gives you information about what those devices are. So, as I mentioned, there was 3 devices offline. What were they? You can come down here and you can see, there was 2 switches that are offline, and then there's the other, which is one of our routers. But it quickly kind of helps categorize, and so you can determine what devices they were. It also consolidates the alarm statistics. So right now we have about 4 critical alarms. You can click on here and it'll take you to the alarm page. We'll show that in a few seconds. So then you can see, from what device is this alarm being generated from, and what that alarm was about. And then to the right here, you have your organization. So for our SE lab, we have 2 sites. We have our HQ here, Irvine, California, and then we have one in Austin, Texas. And we have 2 alarms. So you can see, we have 4 alarms, but where are they? Are they, at our HQ site, or are they at other sites? With the topology view, you're able to see your sites and your profiles, and then the alarms based on those profiles. There's additional other dashboards you can switch to. So there's a switch dashboard that gives you more switch specific information. So you can see your status of online, offline devices, your temperature, and you can change that to particular temperature if you're trying to monitor. The big thing about keeping network equipment healthy is to make sure that temperature is in the optimal state. And then you have your transmit and top transmit and receive data here in this dashboard. And again, this is all real time. You can go and change this if you want to go back to last 30 days just to see a comparison of how it is currently versus how it has been in the last 30 days, along with some CP utilization. And it has some other additional dashboards that are more focused on each of those categories: wireless, hosts, SLO, and PoE that you have available. You can customize the dashboard. So if you want to have a customized dashboard, you can. So we have some cameras here at the HQ side. So we created a custom dashboard based on even the port, and we are able to look at the the throughput of those cameras and just get some information from those devices. So you can do a lot of different dashboards and how you want it to view to show up based on how you want to view. Now, in terms of devices, the inventory management, we have this device view section here. When you first discover all your devices, DB8's going to send out a ping request and do a scan of the network, and you can make those changes however you want, but it's going to find all the network devices and display them here. And once you just determine that they want to be managed, it will be under this Manage tab. And now that it's being managed, it's going to give you more information. It's going to now show you offline, online status. It's going to give you all your devices here. And these are, of course, D-Link switches, but as we mentioned earlier, this is an SNMP based application. So it'll work with other third-party devices as long as they're SNMP based devices, they'll show up here. But you can see you get IP information about these devices, their MAC, their model number, CPU utilization, firmware. So, if you need to generate a report to show me all my DGS, whatever switches, and you want to make sure that, they're running the same firmware, or maybe you're doing some sort of audit where you want to make sure you have all the serial numbers and MAC addresses of the devices, you're able to do that and have that nice and handy here. Now you can also click on these links to go more into a device view. So like, let's say I want to view a device and just get some analytics about it, right? So I can come in here and click on this DGS 121010P ME, where you can see the IP address of the device, what site it's located at, what hardware version, again, CPU to memory utilization in real time. And then you have some other information about, purchase date, right? So if there's any type of RMA requirements, you can keep all that here, and it'd be easy to just reference it here if you ever have to use it. And then some just additional protocols support there. There's also a port tab here where you can see what ports are active. And then if you highlight over the port, you can see the current transmit and receive data. So you can see the kilobits, or you can look at the packets per second. I could tell right away this is if the switch is operating at one gig, or the connection is established at 1 gig. It's one port, and it's a PoE, so I could tell it's 4 watts of power being supplied currently from this switch. So it makes it real easy to review and look at data from a particular switch at any site, that as long as it has a D-Link server or probe. So the additional other fields here is just CPU and memory that we talked about in PoE. Again, a graph to show you the draw, right? You always want to make sure that you're not going close to budget on the device, so you have those tools. Some other nice tools is you can ping the device just to look at response. If it's active, what's the response time. You can save the config, so if you made some changes, you can come in here and save the changes. And then if you want to reboot the switch, right? So maybe there's something where you updated the firmware and you now need to reboot the switch, you can do it all from here. So let me close these out. Some other nice things that it has, there's a lot of other things. We won't get into these because of time, but one nice thing is the topology map. We know we've had some customers ask about topology map. So when you manage devices with DB8, it'll either use a forwarding database, or even better yet, if you enable an LLDP protocol, it will generate a topology of all your devices, so you can see how they're connected to each other. So in our lab, here's how we have it set up. Hopefully it's not too small for your screen. But you can click on this device and it's going to give you information about the device, who it's connected to, right? So I can tell right away 121010 PME. It's this switch here, port 24, and then you have port 112 or port 2 on the other switch, and then same from the other switch, it's coming back here. So there we go. So you're able to then see, okay, how are they connecting, and what IP address is the neighbor switch. So real easy to build out a network topology and just verify that they're using the right ports for connectivity, and how they're connected to each other. And you can also click on the link here, and it's going to give you information about the link. Network utilization, that's just always important. You don't want to oversaturate the network link, and you can see real-time data. And if there's any type of alarms, you would see it here. Currently, I don't think we have any alarms, on these ports. So that's the topology map. I'll quickly go over to two last things. I'll go over batch configuration and firmware management, because I know those are common requests that we get. So with DVU8, you can set up a batch configuration. So these are all pre-built into DVU8. You can customize and add your own quick configuration options. So if you come in here and let's say we want to enable, let's say NTP, you can come in here and just put NTP1, enable, and then you can click on add devices. So you can see it's not just for local server, you can have it also applied to remote sites. It's all encrypted between the sites, and then you can select. I want to put these switches or these 3 switches. Hit OK, and then you have it here, and then you can do it immediately, or you can schedule a date. So you can do that here. And then there's advanced configuration. And advanced configuration is basically if you want to do multiple things, like you want to set up NTP and LDP, you want to enable it, you can do that as well. So batch configuration allows you to do that. Another nice thing is the firmware management. So almost the same as the batch configuration, you can do firmware updates across different sites. So you can select your switches, and you can do different models if you want to do the 1520 and 1250 and upgrades. Pretty easy to use. You would just download the firmware from our support site, upload that firmware to DVU8, and then once that's done, then you can then grab that firmware and then have these switches download it to their memory and then apply it. And then again, same as the batch configuration, you can then determine if you want the firmware to be executed immediately or specific time and date. And of course, whenever you have to update the firmware, you have to reboot the device, so you can have DVU8 do that. So perhaps over a weekend, you can set it to use this firmware, update the firmware, and then reboot it, like on a middle of the night on Saturday, so you can verify that everything is working. And then there's other, like I mentioned, we can't get into all these things, but there's tons of options here that you can use, reports, some troubleshooting tools, SNMP tests, a MIG compiler. You can even get into the device's CLI or file compare a config file from one switch to another, just to, if they're supposed to be running the same config, you can compare those files. Alarms, we didn't get into that, but you can generate alarms, alert me if switch, ABC goes over 80% of utilization. I want to know that, so, we're not oversaturating a link. So it'll give you those tools and those abilities to do that. And so, yeah, so like I mentioned, if you have any questions, if you want more in the depth of DVU8, reach out to us after the webinar or reach out to your sales rep, and we'll be more than happy to share that with you. Thank you.
I appreciate everyone's time on this webinar. We know everyone has busy lives, and especially in the work environment. But again, if you have questions or concerns, even if you have a project, if there's something that you are hearing something and you're like, man, that specific dealing product would probably work for a project I'm working on, please get a hold of us. We could work on a product evaluation sample for your team to test. We could help with pricing, depending on the volume that you have on your project, or do a technical deep dive overview with one of our sales engineers. So all of that's available to you. Just please reach out to us, and we're here to help. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, everyone.